So a while back I made a video ranking every FNaF game, and after I rewatched that video I realized stuff like, why did I put that game here, and oh, I forgot this game. And since Security Breach came out like a month ago now, I thought I would remake the video and add absolutely every single FNaF game into it. Besides the troll FNaF games, like the FNaF 3 teaser, or like, you know, the Sister Location MA edition. I'm not including those because those are just troll games. I'm including actual games here that were meant to be games that are not freaking false advertised. So, yeah, so that's going to be today's video, guys. We're going to be ranking every FNaF game. Again, there's like 13 FNaF games this time, so that's pretty exciting. So yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. So starting off in very last place at number 13, we have FNaF AR Special Delivery. Now this game is a mobile game, so it is littered with microtransactions. Now the gameplay itself is fine enough really, it's pretty fun, but after a while it gets kind of boring. The concept is cool, right? I mean, it's an AR FNaF game, what could go wrong with that really? It's just that it's very similar to Pokemon Go, where it can get really convincing at times and not at other times. It is just a free mobile game, so all of this is expected. I mean, you can't really have your expectations that high for a mobile game, especially when it's free and littered with microtransactions. Coming up next is Freddy in Space 2. This game was made for charity, so it's not meant to be a fully fledged game. Now, the gameplay is actually pretty fun. It's pretty okay, but I mean, it's kind of underwhelming to be honest. Now, the Freddy in Space concept was cool for just a fun minigame like in FNaF World, but as a full game, it doesn't really work that well. But the game was just made for fun, so it's not really meant to be anything great. It was just made for charity, and that's honestly really cool that Scott made a full game for charity. That's really cool. And next up we have Security Breach Fury's Rage. Now, I understand that this game was supposed to just be like a little teaser for Security Breach. It was just supposed to hold over the fans until Security Breach launched. But, I'm gonna be honest here, this game is really fun. Now, the gameplay could get a little repetitive at times, and a little mind-numbing at times, but it's still very fun. And I also like the somewhat hidden lore in this game. Like, the box snake thing, I don't even know anymore. Like, what is that? Like, did we ever solve that? I don't think we did. The art style is also very cool, very 80s-esque, and reminds me of an old SNES game. This game was a really good teaser game, and it's just really cool that Scott decided to make a full game by himself to promote Security Breach. Next up is FNaF World. Now, not everything about FNaF World is bad. Now, the RPG turn-based gameplay could be very fun, if it was executed correctly. I don't know, man, the random encounters could get very out of hand at times. And graphically, the game does not look that great. It just looks kind of lazy, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it. I do like that this game is very self-aware, though. This is especially noticeable in the Halloween update. It's really kind of funny how this game breaks the fourth wall all the time. And it really shows that Scott Cawthon hated FNaF World, and to be honest, I can honestly see why. I am kind of nostalgia blinded by this game, so that's probably why I like it, kind of. I mean, I do like the game, it's just a not very good FNaF game, if you know what I mean. It took all that FNaF built up at the time and just threw it in the trash and started over. And that's probably why everybody hates it so much. Just not really a FNaF game. It's a good RPG, but as a FNaF game, it sucks. Coming up next is FNaF 3. So out of the main OG FNaF games, this one is definitely the worst. It's just, I don't know, it's just very underwhelming. My main issue for this game is the gameplay. There is a lot of waiting around. Instead of multiple animatronics chasing you, you only have one main animatronic to keep up with, and the others are just being distractions, basically. You also have to constantly reboot the system every once in a while, which just makes it very boring, and when you have to wait around constantly, it's just boring. I mean, you don't want to wait around constantly in a FNaF game. FNaF is all about the suspense and the speed and the reaction time, all of that. Not about waiting around for something to reboot. It's just filler. Now, all the suspense that previous FNaF games had is just not present in this game, and the jump scares aren't even that scary. The only thing that I really like about this game that is better than the previous games we already mentioned is it keeps the original FNaF formula, kinda, and I also kind of like the hidden lore in this game. The minigames are just, the minigames are pretty good. FNaF 3 just gets rid of things that the previous games in the series did right, and it's kind of disappointing. This is probably the most disappointing FNaF game. Next up is UCN. So I originally put this higher on the list in the previous ranking, but after playing it a little again, I just come to the realization that it's just not that great. My main issue with this game is it's just too overwhelming, which is kind of the point, but still. I also feel like the animatronics are very unbalanced. A lot of them are just here for filler and to distract you. Now I understand that this game was supposed to pack as many characters as possible into it, but it's just so unorganized. I do like the hidden lore in this game, and the game does reward you for setting the AI higher, but too much is just too much. There's just not really any quality control in this game. Coming up next is FNaF 4. Now, okay, let's just get this out of the way. This game is definitely the scariest in the series. It does re-establish the original FNaF formula while adding on to it. There is no longer any waiting around for systems to reboot or anything like that. And yeah, the gameplay is pretty fun. My only issue with this game, well, my only main issue, is the lore. This game still remains unsolved, and it pretty much throws away everything we knew about the series before this game released. But everything else about this game is pretty good. The animatronic designs are especially terrifying. Like, this game is, as mentioned before, is the scariest in the series. Another problem I have with this game is just, I don't really know if this really counts as a criticism, but the whole Halloween update thing is just confusing to me. Like, Scott said that some characters in them are uncanon, some are canon, but that ended up not being true at all. I don't really know how that works, but the whole Halloween update just kind of confused me. But that's pretty much my only complaint with this game. FNaF 4 is a really good game, and it's a return to form for the series after FNaF 3. Coming up next is FNaF Security Breach. Okay, now listen. Security Breach does a lot of things right. I'm just going to give it that. But it also does a lot of things wrong. For the first half of the gameplay is very repetitive and quite boring, to be honest. It's always the same thing, just get to the other side of the room without the animatronic. It could be Roxy, Chica, the Moon Guy, whatever, without being caught. That's pretty much the gameplay for the first half of the game. Around the second half of the game, though, it gets way more fun. But, to be honest, this game just doesn't feel like a FNaF game to me. For one, the game is not that scary at all. The horror, quote-unquote, horror in this game is achieved through jump scares. And that's about it. The original FNaF games achieved horror through more effects, such as lighting and audio. The general ambiance of those games enhanced the horror besides the jump scares. Now, a lot of things in this game also feel very forced. Like, you know, that ending is just very forced. I'm not even going to go into detail to avoid spoilers, but you know what I'm talking about if you've played the game. The pacing in this game is also an absolute mess. The game gives you no time to breathe in between missions and explore the giant pizzaplex that they worked so hard on. There are good things about this game, like some of the minigames and, like Phaser Blast and that kind of thing. But the game just has so much wasted potential, and at the end of the day, it just feels rushed. I'm not just talking about the bugs. A lot of things that were promised to be in this game are just not there. FNaF Security Breach just ended up being too ambitious for Steelwool to handle. Coming up next is FNaF 6, or Pizzeria Simulator. Now, I know I said before that I don't like the waiting around that FNaF 3 has, and yeah, FNaF Pizzeria Simulator has a lot of waiting around, in the office missions that is. Yeah, but it's the other stuff in this game that I think is great. I really do think this game has the best story in any FNaF game. The way this game ties up loose ends to previous games is just done perfectly. I also really like the Tycoon gameplay. It makes this game feel more personalized. Every copy of FNaF 6 is personalized. I also do like the salvage mechanic. Those are really suspenseful. On top of that, this game was completely disguised when it was first released. People expected this game to be a short little fun minigame for the fans, but there ended up being a whole FNaF game hidden behind it, which to this day I still don't know how Scott pulled that off. Like, that's just insane. Overall, this game was pretty much just the perfect love letter to the fans. Everything in this game was done very well. Next up is FNaF Sister Location. Now, the only issue I have with this game is that the gameplay feels very guided, I guess, if you get what I mean. You don't really have control over where you go or what you do until like the very end of the game. What I mean is that either the handy unit guy or Circus Baby just tells you where to go and you do whatever they tell you. Now, that could be a good thing, don't get me wrong, but for a FNaF game, I would like to have some more control. But yeah. Otherwise, the missions can be very fun, but the difficulty just spikes out of absolutely nowhere, like that one Funtime Freddy mission. Like, what? How do I do that? Like, what? Huh? I do also think this game is just genuinely terrifying, without even trying to be honest. The character designs are just really well done. The secret endings in this game are also really well done, especially the end boss fight. It's just the perfect way of referencing previous FNaF games. Scissor Location just does a lot right, and was definitely the right direction for the series. Coming up next is FNaF 2. The gameplay in FNaF 2 is by far the most suspenseful out of any game in the series, I think. For starters, every animatronic presents a new issue and a new purpose. No animatronic reuses... Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. The animatronics reuse each other's abilities and whatnot, but a new threat. Every time a new animatronic is introduced, a new threat also gets introduced. And there's also no doors, and you have to constantly wind the music box, which can get annoying. But to be honest, without the music box, you'll have no purpose to check the cameras. Foxy being immune to the Freddy mask was also the right choice, considering that the Freddy mask was basically a cheat without Foxy. And the lore in this game is also told very well. I know that the whole Atari minigame thing is used to death nowadays, but this is where it was first done, and I think it was a great choice in the long run. FNaF 2 was a great sequel, but I just think it doesn't do as many things right as FNaF 1. Speaking of FNaF 1, I truly believe that this game does everything right gameplay-wise. I know, it's very simple, but sometimes simple is a good thing. The suspense is definitely still here, and the game is genuinely scary. The audio and just general ambiance, the visuals, the cameras, the sound effects, all of that stuff just give off a certain vibe that's kind of indescribable, to be honest. I can definitely see that why this game went viral. Compared to any other FNaF game, this one is very scary. I wouldn't say as it's scary as like Sister Location, and I wouldn't say the lore is told as well as other FNaF games, but so far FNaF definitely has the best gameplay. Coming up next, at first place, is FNaF Help Wanted. Now, this game is basically the best parts of every FNaF game mixed together. On top of that, this game even adds more ideas, which just makes it that more fun. On top of that, the game is VR, so do I even have to explain myself there? I mean, it's a VR FNaF game, that's just insane. The only issue I have with this game is that it can be quite buggy at times. Maybe that's just on Oculus Quest, but for me, the textures didn't load and stuff, and just the game bugs out all the time, but everything else was done perfectly. Curse of Dreadbear was also a great tie into Security Breach, even if the whole Vanny thing was overhyped. Overall, I really have nothing else to say about this game. It's a perfect letter to FNaF fans, and it's just everything in this game is done perfectly. So that was ranking every FNaF game. Again, I would love to hear your rankings in the comment section down below. Which FNaF game is your favorite? Which FNaF game is your least favorite? And what do you think about Security Breach? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? I'm kind of in between. A lot of parts are good, a lot of parts about it are not so great, but I thought I would just remake this video again and give my thoughts on all the games, including Security Breach. But with that being said, that's going to go ahead and end off today's video. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.